back then I'd played third grade, so I'd been there from early on, but you'd stayed and watched all the grades. All the club was together back then, the whole three grades. And
I'd like to give a big shout out to the Hoodoo Gurus, who have given us permission to use part of their song, That's My Team, as our new podcast episode intro for all of their music. And whenever they are going live or performing live, head to their Facebook and their Instagram. The links will be in the description below. Be sure to give them a like and a follow as well on Facebook and Instagram. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Final Tackle podcast. Again, continuing on with Western Suburbs Week, we've got Western Suburbs legend, Trevor Cogger, and I'm actually joined, this is a joint effort interview with our main man who helps us with some interviews. His name is Angus Ango Hamill. He is a manly tragic, but we won't hold that against him. Welcome to the chat, lads.
Yeah, g'day CJ.
Right, so...
and g'day Trevor.
Yeah.
Nice to talk to you, boys.
Cheers, mate. So,
yeah, indeed.
So first question is, you made your debut for Western Suburbs in 1981. What was it like being able to, more or less play for the team that you grew up in the area? Because back in the day, you did have to play in the area to be eligible, from what I'm told, for that NSWRL team. What was that like for you? Yeah,
well, it was pretty exciting at the time, if I can think that back that far, but... yeah, like you said, we lived at Lickham, played all our junior stuff with Barella Bears, which were in the juniors of Western Suburbs then. Mm-hmm. And we all our friends that played footy, we played together at the junior level, and then a few of us went through and played SG Ball, Harold Matthews, the rep stuff for West, and then to make it to the big time down there at Lickham Oval was pretty exciting.
Do you remember much of your first grade game?
It wasn't too long. It was just half a game. That's the one where the meat pie story comes from.
Okay.
That was my very first grade game. I hadn't played that before. So, it started, I played at lower grades, third grade, and I think I sat on, back then you sat on the bench for the grade above if they needed reserves.
Yep.
They didn't have any fresh reserves back then. So I sat on the bench for second grade and wasn't required, so I had a shower and went up on the hill to watch the first grade game with a few mates and that. And, just after half time, both the halfbacks were injured during the game, Terry Lamb and Alan Neal.
Yep.
They both got injured, and the boys were all ribbing me up on the hill saying, "I'll call you back down there, Trevor." They need a halfback. They haven't got one on the bench, and it was all a bit of a laugh. But sure enough, over the loudspeaker at Lickham Oval, would Trevor Cogger please come down to the West dressing room ASAP?
Oh,
wow. That's incredible how it worked back then, because now the teams are like meticulously planned all week, and then there's just a certain amount of players that's doing a certain job on the bench, and there's like nothing like that happens anymore, does it?
No, well, it's a different setup, and back then I'd played third grade, so I'd been there from early on, but you'd stayed and watched all the grades. All the club was together back then, the whole three grades, and everyone, particularly at Western Suburbs, everybody knew each other through the three grades anyway. And everyone liked to stay back and watch the first grade. If you weren't playing first grade, you'd still stay after your game and watch it. But yeah, I don't think that sort of setup will ever happen again, no. It was certainly off-the-cuff stuff.
Yeah, definitely a sign of the times, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I'll pass it over to Ango word vomit. I'll pass it over to Ango to ask a few questions.
No worries.
Oh, yeah. Well, Trevor, you hold a very interesting record at the Western Suburbs Magpies, a record that since they've been out of first grade since 1999, it probably won't ever be beaten. You actually hold the record for most games across all three grades in Magpies history. It's just such dedication that you've shown playing basically your whole juniors and your whole first grade career with them.
Yeah, well, like we spoke about before, back then you played in the area, and there were certain rules that you had to come from the area to play in the first grade team anyway. But still, that's just what was done back in the day. You come through all the junior stuff, and then you really wanted to play your first grade team in the juniors you were playing with. And today's different because it was run as a business. It wasn't so much a business back in the day. It was still the working class playing football on the weekend. Yeah, and loyalty. There was a lot more of that back in the day, and that was because money was there, but it wasn't
money didn't talk
like
back
it is
then.
today. No, money didn't talk. It was an influencer, but it wasn't the sole decider, which it tends to be today. It was about just playing for the team where you lived, and all the blokes, especially in the lower grades, are all blokes where you knew from growing up, and there were a few blokes in first grade that come from the country or whatever, and but yeah, it was pretty special time in the 80s. I think there was a lot of good players, and when they were playing just to play footy, it wasn't so much a money thing.
Yeah, that's for sure. It was more of a kind of a mateship thing. It was a profession, but it wasn't so much of a profession as it is today with the $1 million contracts and the 100% focused top league kind of NRL happening. It was more about building up a good team with good chemistry with all your mates back then, and good players as well, like yourself. It's incredible that how it worked back then. That's for sure.
Yeah, it worked. It was still the way we got paid was the old chook raffle at the pub on the Thursday night. We had to go up after training and do the raffles and whatever else we could do to raise funds. We had lots of fates where we'd run the fates at Asheville Park and Burwood Park. And
oh, wow.
It was, we'd be the ones on the chocolate wheel or selling the tickets, walking around after training on the Saturday morning, and that's how we raised the funds. And especially way back in, I'm probably getting a bit ahead of where we're going, but in '83 when we got kicked out, that was West were expelled from the comp back then when they expelled Western Newtown, West fought, and we got back in. But that was just a lot of hard work, not only from the players that decided to stay around, but all the committee people back then. They had jobs as well. They were from bankers to doctors to whatever they did, business owners. But they'd done the footy stuff for free. It was all free. They weren't paid. It was
all
then.
For the love of the club and the love of the town.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I was going to quickly take over from you, Ango, for a quick second, because I'm reading a really interesting fact right now about Trevor Cogger, and it's during the 85-86 series that you played with Lee, you actually got and were hospitalised with hypothermia after a match. What was that like?
Yes,
cold England.
It was cold England, yes, it was. Well, back then, these days they play in the summer. They play the same time we're playing at the moment, but back then it was an off season for us to go and play in England, and it was their winter back then. So it was extremely cold, but I was wanting to play in the snow. It was sort of a novelty thing at first, but it was a long bus trip. I think the place was called Mansfield, so it was a long way from Lee. We had to catch a bus there, and the further we were going, the more it was snowing, and we worried we weren't going to play at all. But when we got there, they said, since you've come a long way, we may as well play.
Yep.
So we got out there and it was snowing and you couldn't see the lines or anything. Oh. And after about 10 minutes, it was like slush and it was like an icy, chocolate icy, really. It was crazy, but it was, I just thought it was fun for a while. But yeah, by the time I'd come off at halftime and actually sat down, and my body decided it didn't want any more of that. And my hands started to swell up and my feet. And, it was pretty painful exercise. So I'd end up going to the hospital that night and just stayed overnight. And the boys they never let me forget that's for sure, from then on in. But we used to, another little trivia fact, the boys used to drink cups of tea at halftime over there. That's what was halftime drinks. There was, but I didn't drink tea or coffee. I only had water. But yeah, the rest of the team, they had big jugs of tea, and they used to just come out, and that's how they used to warm the boys up at halftime.
It would have kept them warm.
That was the whole idea of it. Yeah, that's right.
The most British thing I've ever heard.
Funnier. It would have been even funnier for your English teammates, you coming from Australia, which I mean everyone knows is like the hottest darn place on the planet, and then going straight to England and playing in their winter, that would have been more cannon fodder for Hyperthermia.
Oh yeah, that's for sure, mate. Yeah, no, I was destined to get it, that's for sure. But yeah, they certainly didn't let me forget it. It was good ribbon for a few months after that.
No, that's fair. I'll pass it off to Ango to ask a few more questions for you.
Yep.
Yeah, no worries. You played pretty much the whole 80s with Western Suburbs, all the way until the early 90s. Did you kind of get a feeling towards the end of your career that the next season or so might be your last one? And how did you kind of come to the decision that it was time to stop playing footy?
I think all players know, when it's time. I know there's a lot of blokes still playing now, and you think, why would they bother having one more year? But we talked about it before, it's a money thing. But back then, you just know, your body either tells you or your performances tell you, and you know that it's time to hang up the boots. Another reason was as well, which was a factor, Warren Ryan came out to West in 90 or 91, and he started training in the day way back then, even though we still had a job. Like, I was still working for Telstra, and Warren started to do like midday training sessions. So that made it hard as well. I had to sort of make up my mind. I knew I was getting close to the end of my career, but it looks like we're going to start training during the day. I wouldn't be able to continue working with Telstra if that was going to happen on a continual basis. So it was sort of good timing. I was able to leave and keep my job with Telstra, and I, which I worked right through until only last November when I retired from Telstra. So,
oh wow,
yeah. So around that time, it was a decision to make whether I keep playing or give up my job. So it sort of all fell into place for me, really.
Yeah, it sounds like perfect timing, that's for sure. And no worry to Trevor Cogger fans, because the Cogger name has lived on in rugby league, not just in the NRL, but also in local grades as well, with your sons Sam and Jack Cogger carrying on the legacy and the footballing pedigree that is your family. Of course, Jack plays for the Bulldogs right now. He started off with the Knights and he was a Tookley Hawks junior. And Sam played many, many games in first grade for Tookley Hawks.
He certainly did, yeah. Sam, well, I've seen a jersey Tookley presented to with 200 games, so I know he's played at least 200, and I'm not sure if that was a record as well, actually, like most games. I'm not sure with that with Tookley, but still a lot of games to play with Tookley. And Jack, yeah, he played from under sixes right through to under 16s when he was then played up at the Knights in all their junior rep stuff, and debuted at the Knights. Not a memorable debut for him. They got hammered that day. But,
well, the Knights were shit back then, weren't they?
But yeah, he moved on, took an opportunity to go to the Bulldogs. And
he's gone from shit to shit, unfortunately. As in,
yes,
not
unfortunately.
Him. I promise not him, the team in particular.
No,
sorry.
no, that's right. Yeah, unfortunately, it sort of hasn't worked out as well as he was hoping for it to work out. But yeah, I think he's up around 40 NRL games now, so, that's still an achievement in itself. So, absolutely. Just to play one is, everyone's dream, especially coming from a club like Tookley, when everybody would love to play NRL at some stage, and one game would be enough for anybody. But so he's done extremely well, yeah.
And was it you telling me, Trev, that on average, like, the average amount of games per NRL player is something ridiculously small, like 2 or 20 or something like that?
Like
yeah, I think it was you telling me that.
These days. 3 seasons average,
sorry?
I think.
How many, sorry?
I think, now I may be wrong, sorry to interrupt, but from what I've been told and what I've read, it's like the average career span for an NRL player in the current NRL is only 3 to 5 seasons.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's not many, yeah, that's right. And I think the number of games is quite, I think it's only 20-something, Angus, as you're stating. I don't think it's a lot. I know there's blokes that have played 400 now or 300. But
Cam Smith.
Referee Smith.
That's right. There are still a lot of other players, like Jack and numerous other players that, get to their 30s or 40s and obviously bring that average back down. But, yeah, it's a hard job these days. It is a job for them, and lot of pressure on them. You got social media pressure as well as just normal trying to hold your spot down, and pressure from the media. It's not back in the day when we were at West, where there was no media and were just a Sunday paper, and there was only one game on TV a week. So the pressure wasn't there like they have today. No social media either. So it is a lot harder today, but they get paid. They get paid as a job. It's their job, so I suppose that comes with the territory.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm just going to quickly go through a few fun, quick questions. What's your current beer of choice at the moment, Trevor?
Tooheys New.
Yep. No, that's fair. What would be a superpower if you could have one, and why?
A superpower. I'd like to just stay at a certain age. Probably right now I'm more than happy I finished work.
Yep.
So my superpower would be just to stay where I am now and don't get any older, and have the memories I've got from what I've done. So great.
That's totally fair. And one last fun, quick question, and then I'll pass it back over to Ango, is what current show are you binging on Netflix?
Surprise, surprise, I don't have Netflix.
Okay. So what is your favourite show?
No, I got Foxtel. I watch Foxtel.
Okay.
And no, I'm still the old sitcoms. Charlie Sheen, 2.5 Men, and Kramer with...
Seinfeld.
All those American sitcoms I tend to watch over and over again.
Yeah.
I don't watch a lot of TV, to be honest. I like to be outside still, while I'm walking the dog or down the beach or something, so I don't watch a lot of TV, to be quite honest.
That's fair enough. Rightio, Ango, I'll pass it on to you to finish up with a few questions, and then we'll get a wrap up.
No worries.
Yeah, well, the footy days of Trevor Cogger are still not quite over yet, because since retirement, you've forged quite a name for yourself in a little sport called OzTag, being a rep player with the over 45s, and of course playing for the legendary Backyard Grannies, which is how I know Mr. Trevor Cogger here, because him and I are actually teammates at the Backyard Grannies at our local OzTag comp. So, how's it going with OzTag, keeping you fit, and can you give me a good rap?
Well, Angus, definitely I would have to vote you the most improved player over the last few seasons with us, haven't you? You've come a long way from your early days in OzTag, and you picked up your speed. You must be doing some sprint training, have you, with you and your dad or something?
Yeah. I've just actually started walking and stuff, rather than just sitting on my ass playing video games every day.
No, that's cool. No, well, OzTag, it's still good. I like playing it while I still can. The days are probably getting numbered now. I've got the big 6-0 coming up soon, so the days of OzTag are just about over. I think I got this summer in me, mate. That might be my last one, but I do enjoy the boys' company and just being a team sport while you still can have a run around the park. It is fun.
Yeah, it's heaps good. And he's still got it, CJ.
Really?
TC has still got it. The amount of blindside plays, dummies and little jinks and swerves and sidesteps he puts on the opposition, you'd think he was 20 years younger.
I might have to come up and have a watch of your game when they allow spectators at the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's a good fun. You should Angus should sign you up, mate, and have a run around yourself.
Well, I'm registered in the West Gosford comp at the moment, so I may come have a run in the summer comp with you guys.
Yeah,
we need to get our rego in.
Yeah,
we're just talking about numbers and that, but
I'm
sure Angus would
more than down I'm more than down to come and play for you guys in the summer comp for sure, because I'll still be playing for me West Gosford team, but you guys play on a different day to us, so if I can get 2 games a week, pardon my language, but fuck yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, nothing. Yeah, it's all good fun. That's for sure, mate. And
for sure.
Getting a bit of fitness as well certainly helps.
That's literally what I've been doing it for, because I need to lose them COVID kilos.
Yeah,
you and me both.
Right, so I think we should wrap it up. And I think the one question I could ask to finish it up is, what advice would you give to yourself as a when you were a kid, knowing what you know now? And B, what advice would you give to any kid who would want to try and make it in the big leagues one day?
Well, I think with kids and that, I think the thing is dedication still. I know it's hard you've got to rely on parents and that to get you around sometimes. So it is a difficult thing, but you got to keep at it and always give it your best shot, because you never know who's watching in any game. Someone could be watching and spot. There's a lot of spotters out there with different clubs, so always play your best. And if you don't make it, that's fine, because you can always walk away saying, well, I give it my best, and that's all you can do. That's all you can do.
That's fair.
As far as
and for yourself?
Yeah, myself, I think looking back at my career, I probably would. I'd done all the hard work and done the right things all the time, but I think sometimes you've got to take a bit more risk than what I probably took back in my day. I think it's probably like business. To succeed, you've got to have a bit of risk. Possibly comfort was a sign, but I think that my personality is not to be out there anyway. I'm pretty laid back, but I don't like pushing myself out there at all. So I think you need to, when you're in that type of industry, is to push yourself out there. And I'd probably try and change that a little bit if I had it over again. But most things would run exactly the same way.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I want to, first of all, on behalf of myself, thank you very much for joining us. Angus, do you have a last question for Trevor before we wrap this up?
Oh, yeah, this was a fun one, actually. I came up with not long before we actually got on the phone call. But considering how different the professional rugby league is in the 80s compared to nowadays, if you're watching rugby league, you've probably noticed how each player has a different kind of play style. And I was wondering, from your point of view, are there any players playing in the NRL today that you think would have done an awesome job playing in the 80s? And the other end of the spectrum too, I suppose, are there any players today, which will probably be most of them, that wouldn't have stood a chance playing in the tough years in the 80s?
Well, look, I probably can't really name specific players because it is such a different game. Like today's players are so much fitter and stronger, bigger. Back then we had the skillful little players that were. But just thinking while I'm talking, actually now the speed is always a factor. So speed is a factor that was certainly needed back then, and more than ever today, it's still needed in the game. Speed is a commodity that you can't teach anybody. So if you've got it, it's certainly an asset to have. And anybody with speed, I think, can play in both areas. I believe that's for sure.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, that's for sure. Well, you got to be fast to make those line breaks. Yeah,
Blake's gone way back in the 80s. Like Phil Blake, as a halfback, he was a bloke that could transition in today's game because what we talked about before, taking risks, used to be Steve Mortimer. They used to like chipping over the top all the time and having a crack, like putting themselves out there. So I think today's game, they don't like you making mistakes in today's game, but it's still exciting to see someone chip over the top and regather, isn't it? And I think
always.
Those type of things are rare players that can do them, and them two I just mentioned were pretty special, that type of play.
Yeah, my dad loves the chip and chase still. I remember back when he used to always watch your son Sam play first grade for Tickley Hawks. He would always yell out to the boys, "Chip and chase! only kick it as far as you can catch it."
My favorite chip and chase in the history of the modern game since 1998 has to be Billy Slater in State of Origin.
Oh yeah, that was amazing, wasn't it? Yeah, like chipping at a different angle than the way he was running. Yeah,
and then scoring. But that's because I'm a Queensland devout. But still, it was a great chip and chase regardless.
It was, yeah. You can't deny good quality play, and that's exactly what that was. That was amazing.
Exactly. And yeah, I guess that about wraps it up. We'll get you on at the end of the year, I guess, because we can have a fun wrap up of the NRL season together, all three of us, if that's all right with you, Trevor and Ango.
Yeah, no problem, mate. Awesome. Looking forward to it. Not a problem at all.